The approval rating. So when we go back to what Professor Zinkas just said, when he said that Hakeem Jeffries say that Democrats have no power. So I told you when they do have it, they sit on their ass. So I think what you need to see is this. Trump gets a high approval rating for his first weeks. The new CBS poll finds, I want to show you this piece here. It's really interesting. It says a CBS News YouGov poll found that 53% of U.S. adults approved of Trump's overall job in office so far. That is 53%. Obviously higher than where he was in 2016 during his first term. This is a strong message that is sent to the Democratic Party, because I don't know how and I'm going to break down why his approval rating has increased, why people are happy with Donald Trump as president right now. Now, again, when we get to the Gaza situation, you're going to see a different result. But overall, his approval rating is increasing. I don't make up these numbers. I don't make up these numbers at all. And I want to show you a comparison. If we go back and we look at Joe Biden's approval rating in 2020, so his first year as president, this same time, I want to show you what his approval was. So Biden and Trump, February 2021, right? So we're going back to that same month, first year. Biden's approval rating at that time was 49%. 49% first year. Now, 35% disapproved, 16% were unsure. Right now, Donald Trump is at 53%. Same time, first year of the term. And Joe Biden came in after he beat Donald Trump, not only with the Electoral College, but also with the popular vote. And that was his approval rating. Collage says, why is it increasing? We're going to get to that. So this isn't good for the Democratic Party. Like, I don't know what to tell you, folks. I don't know what to tell you, but we're going to get into this clip here where they break down some of these numbers. And I've been saying it for years. I said it all through Joe Biden's presidency, is like, you guys did not deliver on your promises. This is a big one, a big one. Let's go ahead and bring this clip in here.
CBS News out with a new poll showing that Americans seem to be liking what they're seeing. But it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, I mean, look, but it's not just CBS. You know, I like to take an average of the polls. And holy smokes, I mean, look at what the difference is between now versus 8 years ago during the first Trump term, right? This is Trump's net approval rating on February 10th. You go back to 2017, Trump was already underwater at minus 5 points on the net approval rating. That's approval minus disapproval. What a difference 8 years makes. He's on the positive side of the ledger at plus 4 points. And again, it's not just the CBS News poll. We're talking about the Gallup poll. We're talking about the Ipsos poll. We are talking about the Pew poll. All of these respective pollsters have Trump in a better position now than they did 8 years ago. The bottom line is Americans are far more likely to say they like what they're seeing now versus what they felt during Trump's first term.
Okay.
So does everybody see this? Because I want you to understand, these aren't just Republican voters. So this should be a warning to the Democratic Party. Because as I said before, you beat Donald Trump in 2016. You lost him in 2016. You beat him in 2020. And then you turn around and you lose to him again. And as much as people are just like, oh, Gaza, whatever, we're not worried about that. We're not focused on that. I want to make something very clear. MLK talked about this as well. When we're talking about crimes of the empire abroad, it always comes back home. When Kamala Harris could not distance herself from Joe Biden on policy, not just with Gaza, but other things as well, she basically gave a nod, a silent nod to the people to let them think that genocide was okay. She didn't even want to call it a genocide. So when she didn't do that, when she didn't differentiate between herself on this issue and Biden on this issue, one of the things she could have done was call it a genocide. Another thing that she could have done was obviously agree we're going to do an arms embargo against Israel. Wouldn't do it again because, like I said, she's also funded by AIPAC, just like Donald Trump, and she's pro-Israel. The message that Kamala Harris sent was that, well, hell, I guess that's okay. When you don't let the people know that what happened to those people was wrong and that it was an attempt of ethnic cleansing, you basically give the green light for them to accept anything. And so what happened is that some people shifted all the way over to the right towards Donald Trump. I didn't vote for Trump or Kamala. But they made that shift. They said, well, F this. You guys committed the genocide. I'm going all the way over. And I know people who did this personally. So you gave the okay. And so now people see Donald Trump in office and a lot of people are still heavily against what he's trying to do in Gaza. But even those people have come back to me and said, but he didn't commit the genocide. And then you look at all the orders that he's signing. The crimes of the empire always come back home. MLK made this very clear during the Vietnam War that no, LBJ, you should not vote for LBJ because of the crimes in Vietnam. Now that pressure, eventually, I would like to think it was that pressure because eventually LBJ said, yeah, I'm not going to run for re-election. And who won? Nixon. See how people shifted all the way? So we're seeing a repeat of that. Let's continue on.
So how rare is this? Are you going to show us sort of where we're at now and how rare it is that this number
Yeah, so
changes?
I want you to take a look at this plus sign, right? Compare that to the negative sign. Being on the plus side of the ledger, right? In positive net approval territory, a positive net approval rating for Donald Trump. Again, whoa. Entire first term, just 11 days, Donald Trump had a net positive approval rating. Compare that to the second term, just so far, every single day of Trump's second term so far, he has been on the positive side of the ledger, 21 days, all 3 weeks. That's already 10 more days than he was in his entire first term. So again, this is just another sign that Americans are far more likely to like what they're seeing in his second term than they were during his first term.
Let's pause here for a second. Wiz says that's a great point. Another thing I want to bring up here as well. Again, the look on her face is interesting. You should have seen the way that she looked at the camera. The look on her face is like, oh my God, what is happening here? Right. But again, like I said, like I explained to people, you had to really put your foot down about a humanitarian issue. And she couldn't even do that, or she wouldn't even do that. Right. So what you're saying, what Harry is showing here, there's no way. If Donald Trump was as bad as a president as they said that he was in his first term, there is no way he should have been reelected. He should have won another election. And there's no way he should have the approval rating that he has. So what does that tell you about the Democratic Party? How bad could you have been? We're about to see.
He also won the popular vote in his second term, so it stands to reason that there would be more people that would approve of some of what he's doing. Is there something that Americans say about why it is that they like him now more than they did back in the first term?
You know, I think one of the things that's so important for politicians is for folks to believe what they're saying and that they're keeping their campaign promises. So I think this gives you a pretty gosh darn good idea of what may be going on. Trump's doing what he promised to do. You go back to April of 2017, it was just 46% of all Americans who said that Trump was doing what he promised to do. Compare that now to February of 2025. You know, there was a good show that was on during the 1990s called A Different World. That is what's going on right now. We're living in a different world. 70% of Americans say Trump is doing what he promised to do. Again, compare that to April of 2017, when it's just 46%, when Americans are 24 points more likely to say that you're doing what you promised to do. It's no wonder that your net approval rating is much more likely to be on the positive side of the ledger than on the negative side. And so far, what we're seeing, again, is Americans, 21 days so far versus just 11 days during his entire first term, that Trump has a positive net approval rating. Quite a different world.
Yes, it is quite a different world. And I want to point out to people that 70% that said they are giving him approve of his job right now because he did what he said he was going to do. That also is a nail in the coffin for the Democratic Party, particularly the Biden and Kamala administration, because they didn't do what they said that they were going to do. Anytime you see Donald Trump sit down there and just sign executive order after executive order, he did what his base wanted him to do, at least for the most part. Right? Biden and Kamala didn't do that. Don't forget, one of the things that Joe Biden, pushed was that $15 minimum wage. Of course, that did not happen. Joe Biden could have sat down and could have done executive order, the same way that Donald Trump did. He did some executive orders, but Donald Trump sat down and wrote executive orders for exactly what his base demanded of him. Biden did not. Obama did not. I mean, I don't even think, I look back on it and I'm like, Joe Biden said that he was going to expand Obamacare. Did that happen? A lot of us were asking for universal health care, but that mofo didn't even expand Obamacare, which he said he was going to do. What are you talking about? What about when Joe Biden met with civil rights leaders and he told them now is not the time? So Democrats have no one to blame but themselves. It's not on us. All these people are coming out pointing fingers at the people who didn't vote and pointing fingers at the people that voted third party instead of pointing fingers at Biden and Kamala and Hakeem Jeffries and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and the donor class. They're pointing fingers at the voters. That does not work out well for you, by the way. Blaming the voters is not a good strategy. Because what I'd be willing to argue is that if you keep pointing your fingers at people, you think they're going to come out and support you next time, people are actually more likely to stay at home. Now, when we look at some of these numbers, I want to bring this up here from this poll, because I do think this is interesting. And again, Harry took like an average there. You can see this here. They described Donald Trump as, most people said, tough and energetic, focused, effective. We can go down here. The campaign promises, there it is right there, 70%. What he promised in the campaign, 30% said different. Job rating, that's the 53% that we talked about, and 47% disapprove. Here's a big one that Democrats really didn't want to deal with, right? Trump's administration program to deport immigrants illegally in the U.S., 59% say they approved. So again, he did what they wanted him to do. This is another one I think the Democrats really, I don't want to say messed up, but they just did not pay attention, right? That when you had Democrat mayors and governors reaching out to the Biden-Harris administration saying that we need help because we have run out of emergency shelters. And before anyone point their finger at me, I live in Massachusetts. My governor and my former mayor were the people that they were some of the people that reached out, and they said they got no response from the Biden-Harris team for help. And now Mayor Wu is about to go testify in front of Congress about this very same situation. They didn't listen to them. They didn't listen to Black people that lived in those cities that said, whoa, we don't have enough resources here. What are you guys doing? They didn't listen. Democrats just look the other way. Here's another one. Sending U.S. troops to the U.S.-Mexico border. I'm actually surprised by this one. 64% approve of that, right? So they approve of sending the military at the border. There's the immigration one. And don't forget, Kamala tried to run to the right on the border. And I think that confused some people too. They were just kind of like, tried to run to the right on the border when she was the one that was in charge of the border when she was in office. She was assigned to the border. So she didn't try to fix those issues then. Large detention centers while determining who should be deported. 48% favor, 52% opposed to that. Most people are opposed to that. I don't agree with these detention centers. I don't agree that people should be sent to Guantanamo Bay. Guantanamo Bay is a hellhole. And this is a big one. So I said you'll see a difference when we get to Israel and Gaza. Trump's handling of the Israel-Hamas conflict draws overall positive marks, driven largely by support from Republicans on this issue. Trump's handling of it, 54% approve, 46% disapprove. So they said most of the people responding to this question who approve of his handling are Republicans. So keep that in mind. And this is where it gets a little tricky. The U.S. trying to take over Gaza would be only 13% say it's a good idea. 47% say it's a bad idea, and 40% said not sure, it depends. So this is something where Donald Trump, I think there does seem to be a little bit of a divide here with his base over this issue, the U.S. trying to take over Gaza. And this is one of those things where I said, again, like, I don't know, this could be something that pushes some Trump supporters in a different direction. Or maybe they might be like, oh, well, hell no. What the hell is this? You know, and I've seen some people complaining like on X, but this is an interesting one that Trump really should look at, which is that the majority, it seems like, are not in support of the U.S. trying to take over Gaza. So those are some of the situations there. And this is where we're at, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, again, there's no way in hell that Donald Trump should have the approval rating that he has, but he does because the Democrats were so bad. And one thing I will say is that one thing that Trump showed us this election term is just how much the president can actually do. How he can just sit there and do executive order, executive order, executive order. Biden could have done the same thing. Trump is implementing some type of transformative change. It's not in the direction that I want. I would like to see him cut that Pentagon budget. So I'm still waiting to see if that will happen. But most of these executive orders that he's doing, I don't agree with. But the problem is that the Democrats didn't want any transformative change. That's why they don't do as much. That's why Biden didn't have as many executive orders. They don't really want that much to change. The Democratic Party would rather lose to the Republican Party than to give way to the progressive, what's left of the progressive wing of the party. Crazy times, folks. I'm telling you, it's crazy out here in the streets. But the real story, what is the real story here? The real story here is that the Democratic Party allowed this to happen. The Democratic Party made it so that Trump would have a high approval rating. Because if they would have been more aggressive with their executive orders, if they would have done more for working class people, things would be probably differently. If they didn't have the genocide, probably would have won. If it wasn't for the genocide and they would have done more for the working class people, they probably would have won re-election. But I mean, Kamala Harris, when you can't even distance yourself from Biden when regards to a genocide, what did you expect to happen? Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.